The streets of the city were unusually quiet that night, with most commuters already home, safe in their warm spaces. Keanu Reeves, however, was seated on a weathered bench at a downtown subway station, dressed inconspicuously in jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. With him was Bailey, a flop-eared, golden retriever puppy temporarily in his care for his next role, a budding bond for the film that had unexpectedly deepened into genuine companionship. A quiet evening turned chaotic. Keanu and Bailey had made a habit of their nightly walks through this part of the city. Each evening, Keanu would bring loose change or small bills and distribute them to the homeless people lining the station corridors, engaging in brief but warm exchanges. Tonight seemed no different, and Keanu was enjoying the solace of the routine when he noticed a sudden shift in the atmosphere. 3 men appeared from the shadows of the station, a gang whose aura screamed trouble. They were tall, scruffy, and carried an air of danger. Their leader, a towering figure named Sam, had a sneer that could curdle milk. They scanned the area, and their eyes landed on Keanu, mistakenly pegging him as a homeless drifter. "Well, what do we have here?" Sam taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. "A drifter with a fancy pup." Keanu rose slowly, keeping his voice calm. "Just waiting for my train, guys. Let's not make this an issue." But Sam and his men had no intention of letting Keanu go so easily. "You're in our territory now," another thug, Mark, sneered. "Hand over anything of value. That mutt's leash looks pricey enough." The calm in Keanu's demeanor wavered as the gang's attention turned to Bailey. "He's not for sale," Keanu said firmly, stepping protectively in front of the dog. A spark of resistance. Sam, sensing defiance, lunged forward, grabbing for Bailey's leash. In that moment, Keanu's instincts as both an actor and a person kicked in. He deflected the thug's arm with practiced precision, honed from countless fight scenes, though he held back his full strength. But the gang wasn't about to back down. "You've got guts, old man," Sam spat. "Too bad you won't have them for long." Just as things escalated, a voice rang out. "Leave him alone." From the shadows emerged George, an elderly homeless man Keanu had befriended during his visits. Behind George stood a growing crowd of individuals from the station's homeless community. "This man helps us every night," George declared. "You're not laying a hand on him." The Underground Alliance. The gang laughed, brushing off the confrontation. "What are you gonna do? Throw your blankets at us?" But the homeless crowd didn't falter. A woman named Linda stepped forward, holding a broom handle like a staff. Others brandished makeshift weapons, pipes, wooden planks, anything they could find. Keanu turned to George, his voice a mix of gratitude and concern. "You don't have to do this. It's too dangerous." George smiled faintly. "You've shown us kindness, Keanu. It's about time we paid it back." The gang, realizing they were now outnumbered, grew visibly nervous. Sam snarled, "This isn't over," before signaling his men to retreat. They slunk into the shadows, leaving behind a palpable tension. A brief respite. As the gang disappeared, the crowd began to disperse, murmuring words of comfort and caution. George clapped a hand on Keanu's shoulder. "Be careful, friend. They'll be back." Keanu nodded, shaken but determined. "Thank you, all of you. I owe you more than words can say." He crouched down to scratch Bailey's ears, the puppy wagging his tail as if nothing had happened. But Keanu knew that the events of this night were just the beginning. The eerie silence of the subway station returned after the gang retreated. Keanu Reeves, clutching Bailey's leash, watched the shadows where the thugs disappeared. Around him, the community that had come to his aid lingered, offering quiet reassurances before slipping back into the edges of the station. Keanu crouched beside Bailey, his hand steadying the dog's trembling body. "We've got to end this, buddy," he murmured. "Not just for us, but for everyone here." A dangerous lead. As Keanu rose, George approached, his face grim but determined. "They'll be back," he said. "And they'll bring reinforcements next time." Keanu nodded. "Do you know where they might go?" "A hideout, somewhere they regroup." George hesitated before gesturing to a series of darkened tunnels branching off from the station. "There's an old service area past the west platform. It's abandoned, but I've seen them heading that way late at night. If they've got plans, they'll be there." Keanu's mind raced. He couldn't let this continue. These thugs preyed on the vulnerable, turning a place of refuge into a hunting ground. "I'm going to check it out," Keanu said firmly. "Not alone, you're not," George replied, picking up a makeshift club. "We'll go together." Into the shadows. Keanu, George, and a small group of volunteers ventured into the west platform's depths. The air grew colder as they descended, the fluorescent lights above giving way to the dim glow of their flashlights. Bailey padded quietly beside Keanu, his ears perked and alert. The tunnels were a labyrinth of crumbling walls and graffiti-streaked passageways. Eventually, faint voices echoed through the darkness, drawing the group closer. Peering around a corner, Keanu spotted the gang gathered in a makeshift lair. Sam stood at the center, barking orders while his lackeys sorted through stolen goods, wallets, phones, and even a few personal trinkets. A crate in the corner rattled, followed by a soft whimper that made Keanu's blood run cold. "Bailey's not the only one," George whispered, pointing toward the crate. "The confrontation." Keanu stepped forward, his voice cutting through the dim air like a blade. "Enough." The gang froze, their heads snapping toward him. Sam's face twisted into a sneer. "You've got guts showing up here, old man." Keanu held his ground, his eyes blazing with determination. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to end this. Let the dogs go. Leave these people alone." Sam laughed, a cruel, hollow sound. "And what makes you think we'll listen to you?" Keanu's jaw tightened. "Because if you don't, this won't end here. The authorities will get involved. Your faces are already burned into my memory, and trust me, the world will know who you are." Sam's bravado faltered for a moment, but he quickly masked it. "You think you scare me? You're just an actor. This is real life." Keanu's response was calm but steely. "I may be an actor, but I've learned a thing or two about handling people like you. An unlikely alliance." Before the tension could escalate, the homeless group stepped forward, surrounding Keanu in a show of unity. Their presence unnerved the gang, who exchanged uncertain glances. "You mess with him, you mess with all of us," George said firmly. Sam's confidence began to waver. "Fine," he spat. "Take the dogs. But don't think this is over." He gestured to one of his men, who reluctantly opened the crate. Out bounded two frightened but unharmed dogs. Bailey barked excitedly, wagging his tail as they scampered toward the group. Keanu knelt to comfort the dogs, his relief palpable. "You made the right choice," he said, standing to face Sam. "Now leave this station. Don't come back. A new beginning." As the gang slinked away, Keanu turned to the group that had supported him. Their faces reflected a mixture of triumph and disbelief. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "Tonight, you showed courage I'll never forget." George placed a hand on Keanu's shoulder. "No, thank you. You gave us the strength to stand up for ourselves." The subway tunnels seemed less foreboding as they made their way back to the station. Keanu looked at the dogs trotting beside him and the newfound resolve in the faces of his companions. This wasn't just a victory over a gang, it was a step toward reclaiming the dignity and safety of the station's forgotten community. As Keanu and Bailey finally boarded their train, the actor leaned back in his seat, a sense of peace washing over him. The night had tested him in ways he hadn't expected, but it had also reminded him of the power of unity and compassion. And for this community, the story was far from over.